RV repair techs drive around with so many tools in their service vehicles. So today I thought I would give you a tour through my tool bag and show you just what it takes to fix all of the craziness that happens inside of RVs. I also thought I would walk you through what tools are useful for the everyday average RVer and what you can keep to the professionals. My name is Emily and I am a certified RV repair tech based in Las Vegas. This is RV Repairwoman and this is my tool bag tour. But before I walk you through this beautiful bag, I'm actually going to cheat just a little bit and start by talking about my ladder. So this ladder's brand name is Vivadia. It sounds a little bit like a biscuit you might eat to help you poop, but the ladder itself is awesome. I've seen a lot of RV influencers who are trying to hawk a ladder that's very similar to this one, but about twice the price. That ladder costs about $400, and this bad boy, I think, cost me under $200. I think in like the $150 to $200 range. If you've never tried one of these telescoping ladders, they are a little bit heavier than your traditional aluminum extension ladder. But what you lose in the little bit heavierness of the ladder, you gain in compactability. My service vehicle is a Kia Soul, and unless I put a ladder rack on the roof, which would be funny, I just can't fit a traditional extension ladder inside of my vehicle. So this was a really fantastic option. I also think it would be great for a lot of RV owners because the weight rating for the ladders that come pre-attached to the back of a lot of RVs can be really low depending on what RV it is, when it was made. And honestly, as a professional, I don't use the ladders attached to the back of RVs. I've just seen them be really shoddily attached, and both for my safety and for insurance reasons, so there's no way that I hurt your rig or myself, I don't use those ladders and I only use my extension ladder. In the cons column for this ladder, it is a little bit heavier, like I said, than most traditional extension ladders. And it does take a little bit of choreography to extend. But honestly, after the second or third time of me playing around with it, it became really second nature. And to retract the ladder, it's honestly really satisfying and fun. You just pull these two tabs and it just slowly descends. The maximum weight rating for this ladder, I think, is about 300 pounds. So I've ran into multiple couples where one of them had to be the person that did all of the roof work just because they didn't have a ladder that could support the other person in the couple. And so in situations like that, having a ladder like this can really help out, that you can now get both of you up on the roof. So highly, highly recommend this ladder, both for professionals and for everyday RVers. On to the tool bag. This is a Klein tool bag that I'm going to be totally upfront. I didn't purchase myself. When I knew I was going to be going to RV school, I put it out into the universe to all of my friends that worked in the trades and said, hey, I'm going to be going down this new path in life and I know I'm going to need a tool bag. If you have one, could I at least try it out? Could I try it on, try to hold it, just see how it fits my body? Most tool bags aren't made with women in mind, and I'm not one of those people that's like, my tiny feminine hands can't hold it, but more like backpacks and things tend to be really big on me because my frame is just smaller than the men that these are traditionally built for. So I tried one out that I liked and I was gonna get it, and then another friend of mine popped out of nowhere and said that his work had a bunch of them lying around and he could give me one if I wanted it. So total shout out to that friend. They are amazing. And I really love the bag. It is a little bit long for my frame still, so if you are a petite woman, just know to keep that in mind. It has a hard bottom, which is great for when I'm out and about, but it does hit me in kind of a weird spot in my back. So if I was going on like a longer trek for some reason with my tools, like if I had to walk through a casino which isn't something I do as much now, but in previous jobs I did a lot. I could see where that could get really annoying. Luckily for me, I'm not usually walking very far, just around an RV park, but it's just something to keep in mind if you are a relatively small woman and if you are going to be walking around a lot with your bag. I did want a backpack style tool bag because I knew I was going to be walking up and down ladders a lot, and I wanted to have my hands free for that. All about ladder safety, folks. I had to take the full OSHA 10 training for a previous job, and just the one thing that really stuck with me was ladder safety. So, hands free. The main thing that I really love about this bag is that ta-da! Opens up so you can see everything that's inside. I hate having to dig through boxes and bags to get to things. So the idea that with this bag that I can just see all my tools where they are. These are the only two things that just sort of live swimming in here. And this usually just lives in my car, to be honest. So just being able to grab and go, absolutely love. It's also got a hard pocket on the front to keep valuable electronics safe. I'll talk about what's in there later. And just enough pockets that I can have compartments for different types of things. So really love this bag. I'll have a link in the description if you're in the market for a good tool bag. My dad fell in love with this too and ended up getting the same bag. So I feel like an influencer. On to the tools inside, the most exciting part. Starting with the tool that I was the least excited to purchase and was the most wrong about. So when I first signed up for the NRVTA, the National RV Training Academy, they sent us a list of required tools to buy. And honestly, when that list came in, I felt like I was in Harry Potter. Instead of going down Diagon Alley to get a cloak and a wand with a bearded half giant, I got to walk down the aisles of Harbor Freight to get a screwdriver and wire strippers with my bald boyfriend. It was honestly a really great day. I had so much fun. Until I came across this. This is an 11-in-1 multi-tool. And when I first saw it on the list, I was honestly a little shocked. In my mind, at the time, I was like, what professional uses a multi-tool? I used to be a diehard hater of these kinds of things. In my opinion, most of them do not work very well. They are just super clunky. It's a pain in the butt to switch between tools, and it just takes more time than it would take to just reach over and pull out another tool. And pretty much every multi-tool that I had ran into was missing bits. So it was useless on that front as well. But this bad boy was required. So I hit add to cart, and I will totally eat crow on that. This tool is amazing. I use it every day. If there was going to be one tool in this thing that I think every RV owner should own, it would be this Klein 11-in-1. It has, as the name suggests, 11 tools hiding in here. It's got your traditional Phillips and flathead, both in P2 and in P1 size. And then on this side, it has a Robertson bit and the sort of star torque bit. Those are the two tools that I don't really use as much in here are the star torque bits, but they do come up in RVs every once in a blue moon. And then they just slide into this shaft, and it is super easy. The locking mechanism in this thing is great. I rarely, if ever, have bits falling out. I haven't lost any bits yet. And honestly, the biggest thing for me is how easy it is to switch between a standard Phillips bit and a size 2 Robertson bit. Those are the two most common screws in an RV, and the fact that it literally just takes doing this to switch between the two, amazing, life-changing, great. And inside of each of these is a different size hex head socket, and this thing has been able to fit between the 4 different hex heads in here. I don't think I've ran into a hex head that this can't fit in an RV. So truly, especially because there's so many tight spaces in RVs where I can't bring my entire toolkit. The fact that I can have pretty much everything I need in one hand, amazing, life-changing. This tool is great. I highly recommend it. This is something that every RV owner should have. Well, bam. Moving on to my second most used tool in my kit, that would be this multimeter. I personally use a Klein CL800. It was the multimeter that was recommended for my RV school that I went to, and I really love it. It is really well made in that it's just durable. It literally sits at the bottom of this bag and it still looks good as new. I haven't had anything break on it, knock on wood. You'll find as we go through this video that I'm a Klein Dewalt Harbor Freight girly. My view on tools is I'll usually go Harbor Freight until it dies and then decide if it needs an upgrade, and if it does, then I'll usually go either Klein or Dewalt. And I'll go more into my personal brand choices a little bit later and why I've settled on those two brands, but that's what works for me. That's what I love. And so I love this multimeter. It's got what you need to work on an RV and just none of the extra fluff. I think this guy comes in at around $100, and for me, that's a pretty good sweet spot for multimeters. Costs for multimeters run the gambit. Like, you can go to Harbor Freight right now and get a really cheapo multimeter for like $5. And then you can buy Fluke brand ones that just go into the hundreds and hundreds of dollars. You can truly like spend infinity money when it comes to multimeters. This guy's a pretty good sweet spot in that for $100 you get something that's well made, something that's not going to fall apart, has a range of functionality. You can do voltage, amperage, continuity, hertz. I don't use a ton except for on generators, capacitance, and then it's got a low Z setting or a low impedance setting that is used when diagnosing specifically domestic air conditioners. They have a weird electrical interference that you use that for. The only time in my professional life so far that I have been electrically shocked was because of a bad multimeter, not this one, a cheapo Harbor Freight multimeter that had a connection inside of it go bad. And so when I went to check and be sure I was safe to interact with the circuit, it read that there was 0 volts there, went to touch it, it was in fact hot. And I shocked the crap out of myself while on top of a ladder and kind of precariously placed. My two fears met at once. Getting shocked while on a ladder. 0 out of 10 would not recommend. I would recommend spending money to get a decent multimeter. This is sort of a safety device. You're relying on this to tell you when it's safe to touch things and when it's not. So you really want that thing to be good. And if you want to follow along with RV repair women tutorials, this will be the multimeter that I'm using to diagnose things and show you how to do stuff. So if you want to follow along, this would be a good multimeter. But I do recommend that if you are going to be someone that wants to work on your rig by yourself and be able to fix things and diagnose what's wrong, you should have a multimeter. If not this one, get yourself something, get comfortable with it. If you would like a video on multimeter basics specifically for RVs, let me know in the comments. I would love to make that video. And I can do it both with my quote-unquote fancy meter, and I can also use a cheapo Harbor Freight meter to show you the difference between the two, and also, so if you don't have this, you're good. I know I've talked a lot about all of the tools so far. Now that we're past my 3 favorite or most used tools, we'll go a little quicker. Let's see. Onto, in this pocket is where I hold, wire strippers. This is like the cheapest Harbor Freight wire stripper there is. And going along the same lines of me hating multi-tools, this thing tries to do 17 things at once. I really only use these for crimping electrical connections like butt connectors, terminals, things like that. They claim to have wire strippers here at the bottom, and those are absolutely useless to me. I've used them in a pinch once or twice, but they absolutely suck as wire strippers, so I really only use these as crimpers. I use this style of wire stripper to actually strip wires. And this will definitely be a tool that gets upgraded to a Klein once it dies. It's just not quite as sharp as I would like, and the spring isn't fantastic, but it's getting the job done. Your girl's on a budget. We're making it work. Honestly, if you're on a budget and you're not really doing a ton around your rig, this guy can work for you day to day. I just do enough work that I wanted sharp wire strippers, so that's why I have both. And then here is where I hold things that pinch. Pliers. So I've got 2 sets of needle nose pliers. Keen eyes will observe that these are significantly older than all of the rest of the tools. I had my own set of needle nose and I lost them, and so my wonderful boyfriend has allowed me to borrow these until I get a new pair, and I keep forgetting. So that's why they're a little rusty. I would not be surprised if these were originally my boyfriend's dad's tools. They're kind of old, but they get the job done. These get used primarily for pulling fuses and really crummy electrical connections off. I, as a general rule of thumb, try to keep my meat fingers out of electrical circuits as much as possible. So when it comes to pulling terminals, pulling fuses, interacting with circuits, I try to do it with pliers as often as I can and keep my meat fingers out of the way. Don't shock me, please. Also in the pinching category, channel locks. These are super awesome. They are a heavier, quote unquote, hand tool. So I don't know if it's something that every RV owner, if you're just starting to build up your toolkit, I don't know if everyone needs a set of channel locks, but these are just, as someone who has to use tools every day, a really great multi-use tool without being a multi-tool, because I've stated how much I hate multi-tools. I've used these as a hammer in a pinch. I've used these where I should have been using needle nose in a pinch, plumbing connections that often have really small fittings that you're supposed to have a specialty tool for. You can make it work with channel locks. We have used these to get the lid off of a really annoying jar of pickles. Truly, channel locks can be used for a ton of things, so love my channies. I'm now so misweighted that my bag wants to fall over, so let me pull the thing that's weighing it down. In the back pocket that normally is for laptops and things is where I keep my sockets set. When I first started working on RVs, I thought everything would be in SAE or standard because most RVs are made in Indiana. And I run into the odd metric thing all of the time. So I now have a pretty good set of both SAE and metric sockets to help me get off all the weird hex heads that you run into on an RV. But honestly, again, Harbor Freight, and you just keep it on, the thing it came on, and they just slide on and off super easy. So not something, if you're just starting building out your RV toolkit, these got some weight to them, and honestly, most of the hex heads that you run into on an RV can be done with this multi-tool in a pinch. So are these super helpful? Yes, but you can live without them at first. Back to the pockets, just a normal set of scissors, super useful. I had to borrow a customer's scissors once from their kitchen to cut something. I think it was either heat shrink tube or part of a slide topper, something like that. And ever since, I always keep several pair of scissors. You probably already own a pair of these. You're ready for this. Oh, obviously with the sockets came the handle to put them on. And I personally recommend, if you are going to get a socket wrench handle, what do we call this? Get one with a rubber handle, one that isn't metal all the way down. That's going to help you when you are tightening up batteries or disconnecting battery connections. The big thing that I see happen a lot is you go to loosen up the positive connection and this moves over and makes contact with the negative connection, and it does this big scary spark, and if you hold it there, it will actually weld itself to the battery, which is bad and can really hurt. So rubber handle, love to see it. Oh, this was a relatively new upgrade. I used to just have a regular like $199 meat thermometer that I kept in my kit, and I most recently upgraded it to a Klein because your girl's a Klein girly. This one's really fun because the sheath that keeps the stabby part from stabbing anyone can turn around and become part of the handle. And then it's digital. I like the fact this one can do max and min readings, so you can just leave it somewhere and be like, tell me what the max reading you saw was. These are primarily used by techs to do temperature drop tests on air conditioners. So you'll hold this up to the intake for the AC, get a reading, and then hold it up to the vent, the out vent, or one of the out vents for the AC and get a reading, and you're hoping to see around 20-degree difference between those two. I've also used it to help diagnose refrigerators. Super helpful, super nice. I like this thermometer. Very fun tool. And it can just like stick on your lapel and you feel very cute. All right, I think that does it for the main pocket. Yeah, I do just have this random nut driver that's still sticking in here that I should remove, and because I never use these. Oh yeah, in fact, okay, so if you're going to the NRVTA, they recommend that you get a full set of these nut drivers, both in SAE and in metric, and I never use these, ever, especially because I have this socket set and a drill and impact driver that I'm gonna get to. Yeah, I used it one day at school and then never again, and now I have 2 full sets of these just taking up space at the bottom of my car. I should take them out. They're useless. Side note, if you are going to the NRVTA, you just dropped a bunch of coin to take these classes. Then you got the tool list and you're like, oh my God, I now need to drop a whole bunch of coin on tools. I'm not saying be a rebel. I took the full 7 weeks. I did fundamentals. I did the 4 advanced classes. I did solar. I did Jenny's. You can get through 80% of it with this multimeter and this multi-tool. Highly recommend you spend the money to have the same multimeter that everyone's using, just so if you ever need help troubleshooting, the TAs really know this multimeter. It's a good multimeter, and you're more likely for them to be able to help you if you have the same one, and then you need the multi-tool to take things apart. Other than that, would really recommend the needle nose pliers, and if you're truly in a pinch, just get this cheapo thing for stripping and crimping from Harbor Freight. And with those 4 tools, the needle nose, the shitty stripper crimper, the multimeter, and the multi-tool, you can do like 95% of everything that they ask of you. There's one day where you take apart fridges, and that day it's helpful to have more tools, but you have to pair up and do that with a friend anyway, so just make a friend who brought way too many tools, and you can get through that day. These 4 tools will get you through everything else. Let's see, that covers the front of the pack. Let's check out the pockets in the front. Fun lights, really recommend these little work lights. They're like $2 at Harbor Freight. Get 2 so you can be lit from 2 different angles. Really helps. Every compartment in an RV is super cramped and super dark, and especially if you have bad vision, these help a ton. They got like a big light on the front and a smaller light hiding somewhere on the side. These are great. You can never have enough lights. If you also want a headlight, that wouldn't hurt anything. So these are great. I use them all the time, almost every call I go on. Thread seal tape. This tape is for plumbing connections, so for water. These are great for putting on threaded connections in your water system. It's going to help make them watertight. There's a different type of thread seal tape for threaded gas connections. It's usually yellow, but not always. So don't use this type of tape on gas connections. I have the gas one somewhere. Also note, I'm totally blanking on what they're called, but there is a type of threaded gas connection called this that looks like this, and you do not use thread tape on that type of connection. That small bit on the bottom that is not threaded actually butts up against the female connection once everything is tight and makes the gas tight seal. And if you put thread tape on there, then that unthreaded part isn't going to get down all the way, and make a good connection, and you're actually making it less gas tight if you use thread tape on those connections. Pro tip from an RV repair woman. Ooh, GFCI Tester, super useful. This guy is for testing outlets in general. We'll just tell you if your outlet is wired correctly. Not something that every RV owner needs, but if you are having problems with GFCIs popping, GFCI, ground fault circuit interrupter. Yes, GFCIs popping all the time. These are super helpful. You can do all of the thing that this is testing with this. You just have to like put thought into it. And this can also test if the GFCI is popping when it should, and that this can't really do that. So yeah, super cheap, easy tool, really useful. Ooh, and alligator clips, just a bunch of alligator clips. These are great for troubleshooting, jumping little connections to see if you can bypass a problem. I use these quite a bit in troubleshooting electrical problems. They are not for permanent solutions, just for troubleshooting. But you can see I have a whole mass of them, use them all the time. And then in the hard pocket on top, that's where I keep my little square card reader. So that way, ooh, I feel like a makeup influencer when they like show their brushes or the colors. This is probably my favorite tool because it's what I use to get paid. This allows me to pay for groceries and mimosas. Found the meat thermometer. I thought I had lost this thing. And now I can chuck it because I have the Klein one. But this is the meat thermometer I used to use before I got that Klein one. Yeah, super cheap, super easy. If you're having problems with your AC, your fridge, just whether or not things are getting to temp, cheap and easy tool to test. And then I don't have it in here now, but I also use and walk around with a Flear thermal imaging camera. The first thing that I use this camera for is for thermal audits of people's rigs. So I can go through your rig and show you exactly where cold air is leaking out, which is the biggest deal here in Las Vegas in the summer. You can obviously do something very similar in the winter to see where the hot air is leaking out. Oftentimes, people who are struggling to keep their rig cold, their problem is not with their AC, but instead with the insulation in their rig. And there can oftentimes be huge places where air is leaking out that you don't realize, and they show up really nicely with a thermal imaging camera. That's not a tool that everyday RVers need to have because they're very expensive, but something that a tech can come out with their fancy tool and show you. The other thing they're super useful for is looking at solar installations. Well done solar installs, the connections shouldn't be getting above a certain temperature. If you have one connection that's getting significantly hotter than the rest, then that means that that connection is probably not well made and should be redone. If you are paying thousands of dollars for a solar installation, then they should be able to show you using a thermal imaging camera that they have installed it correctly and it doesn't have unnecessary hot spots. So super useful tool that I keep in my kit for really niche scenarios. That's it for the bag. Let me show you some bonus tools that I don't keep in the bag that I walk around with every day, but do keep in my kit in my car for more niche scenarios, or at least tools that are so heavy that I don't want to keep them on my back all the time. The biggest one being my manometer. So a manometer looks like this. It's a dial with a hose. It usually comes in like a blue box. Why they're all blue, I don't know. Manometers are used to test RVs for propane leaks. They can also tell you whether or not your propane regulator is working properly and you're getting the right propane pressure to your appliances. This is super helpful and super useful because before a RV tech can crack a propane line on your RV, they should be doing a time pressure drop test or a propane leak test, same thing, to make sure that your rig doesn't have a leak before they crack the line. And then they should be doing that test again after they crack a line to prove that they haven't added a leak to your system. This is not something that everyday RV owners need to have, but if you are going to be replacing an appliance, or if you suspect you have a propane leak, or you're looking to buy a used rig, the number one red flag for me as a mobile tech when buying a used RV is if it has a propane leak. I will not spend money on a rig with a propane leak. If you would like to learn how to test your rig for a leak using this, I have a whole video that walks you through it. That video is primarily geared toward people who are buying used rigs, but you do the same test to see if the rig you already have has a leak, or again, if you've added a leak to a system after replacing an appliance. Super useful. Don't keep in the backpack because it just takes up a bunch of space, but use all of the time. And then power tools. I go with Dewalt when it comes to power tools. I know there's a whole set of Milwaukee bros out there that are diehard Milwaukee. Honestly, fuck Milwaukee. The last job that I had before I started my own business, we had Dewalt tools that my boss had had for years. We finally decided that it was time for an upgrade because, like my boss, they were getting a little old, but totally fine. They just decided it was time for an upgrade, and they decided to switch over to Milwaukee for whatever reason, and the chucks on the drills of those Milwaukee drills died within a couple months. They freaking sucked and would not hold on to a drill bit to save their life. And it was the biggest pain in the butt. We were constantly pulling the DeWalts out of a box in a corner, the old ass DeWalts, because even the old loose chucks on those were better than these almost brand spanking new Milwaukee chucks. So ever since then, I will never spend money on Milwaukee tools ever. And so I went with DeWalt. Love the yellow anyway. It's such a happy, cheery color. Have both a drill and an impact driver. I use them a bit, but honestly, again, I use the multi-tool quite a bit because I do tend to work on older rigs, and I'm just less likely to strip a old rusty screw, and I've got more finesse with this guy than with these. Of course, have both drill bits and bits for the power tools, and with them, I also drive around with this magnetizer and demagnetizer, so you can run the bit through the magnetized section a couple times, and then it will become magnetic, and then you just run it through the demagnetized section, and then it's no longer magnetic. Super useful when pulling screws out of tight spaces. Don't use every day, but has helped me out in a pinch more than once. Getting to the bottom of the pile. Wrenches, got the full set, SAE and metric. I just don't keep them in the backpack because they're a little heavy, but they get used a ton. A length of wire. I don't actually use these for rewiring things, I think, ever. What I mostly use these for is for troubleshooting. A common problem with RVs and RV appliances are bad grounds and finding a good ground. And so oftentimes you just need to be able to connect to a known good ground just to be able to test off of, and that can be very far away at times. So just having a really long length of wire can be super useful. You also use it to test for hot skin, used more for troubleshooting than actually implementing the solution. Cheapo caulking gun. This is just a cheapo caulking gun borrowed from the boyfriend because he had a ton of these for some reason. Also good for working on grip strength. You use this for caulking sealant, die core, caulk, any sort of liquid product. Gotta have one of these. Non-marring pry bars. These are great for getting off anything that might have been put down with a caulking gun. They're pretty good at getting stuff like caulking and die core off without scraping up the RV underneath. They still can scrape, so you do have to be careful, but they come in a pack of different widths. You can see this guy I've used so much that his edges have rounded over. He should be replaced. But yeah, super useful to keep in the kit. I've used them as pry bars more than once, probably when I shouldn't have. Not something everyone needs, but the right tool for the right job when you need it. Here's one I stole from the automotive industry. These are plastic trim removal pieces. They come in like a pack. I think there's like 2 more in the pack when I got it from Harbor Freight. These I actually used a ton when I was replacing the bulb seals on an RV. The seal that goes along your slide, I did a full replacement on 4 different slides of those, and these are really helpful in both getting that old seal off and getting the new seal to really crimp onto the track that has to go on. If you need to do that job, these are the ones, this guy in particular, he was the star. We're almost to the end. A hand riveter. RVs, occasionally you'll run into the most annoying freaking rivet in your life that you need to drill out to get something off, and then you have to replace that rivet. So I had to run out and get a rivet gun, a hand rivet gun of all things, at one point just so I could do that. So now I have one. And then my favorite tool of all, because my dad and I made it, is this that looks like a bunch of wire, but is actually really cool. So what it does is you can take these 2 ends and hook them up to an adapter for the battery on a drill. I just had to steal the adapter from this for something else, but these would hook onto that. We've then got a fuse in case anything goes wrong. That'll pop first. We then go to a switch so I can control which direction the power is going, because we then go to this very long cable, Scooby-Doo-Wah, where the end connects to a Schwintek motor for a Schwintek slide. So using this, we can completely disconnect a Schwintek motor from the RV and power that motor with one of these batteries. That's helpful for 2 reasons. One, it can help us diagnose whether or not the problem with your slide is with the motor or with the rig itself. And then also for safety reasons, allows us to completely disconnect control of that motor from the rig buttons, and we control it using this. That way there is no chance that someone goes and hits a button and squishes one of our fingers. Love this, both for how useful it is and also because my dad and I made it together. So this one will always have a special place in my heart. And I think that's it. That's almost all of the tools that I use on a day-to-day basis to help fix RVs. If you would like to learn how to maintain your RV so you do not have to call a tech like me, I have a link in the description to my ultimate guide to RV maintenance, where I walk you through how to maintain everything from your ACs to your freshwater tanks with step-by-step guides. And if you just want to learn about RV repair, go ahead and hit subscribe, because I've got new videos coming out every week. This is RV Repair Woman. You got this.